Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and this is the first interview in a series that I'm hoping to do that was actually suggested uh, in part by my guest and his family that we have this week. I'm looking to interview the family and the spouses of some of the independent wrestlers and that I know and watch wrestle on a regular basis from the area. And the first person who's willing to do it is Logan Roswell, the husband of former Stride champion Dexter Roswell. So Logan, thanks so much for doing this.
Hey, no problem. I'm more than happy to do it just to kind of, get out there and just kind of tell our story.
Um, so my first question is it's kind of my question to every wrestling related person that I have on the podcast. Were you a wrestling fan before you met Dexter?
Oh, yes, I was a big wrestling fan before I met Dexter. I grew up playing all the video games and watching it on TV. Um, I loved everything about it before meeting him, and I think just me liking wrestling before really helped us kind of, like get to know each other and grow as a couple.
Awesome. So when did you and Dexter first meet?
Me and Dexter met about 2 years ago. We actually met on a dating app, and we talked a little bit, and we talked about wrestling. And he sent me pictures that of what he looked like wrestling, and the different characters that he played. And I was kind of like, "You wrestle in a suit?" So yeah, like we met about 2 years ago after exchanging information, and kind of went on our first date, and it's kind of went from there.
So, um, I gotta ask, like, did you know from the app that he was a pro wrestler, or was that something that kind of came along after the fact?
That was actually something that came along after the fact. He just messaged me randomly, and we just started talking, and we were just talking about the different things that we do. And I noticed that he was in my area, which at the time I lived in Vincennes, Indiana. And he said, "Well, I live in Harrisburg, but I'm in Noble, Illinois, wrestling here at this show." So that kind of came after we first started talking to each other, and it was just kind of like giving each other details on who we were and where we're from and what we do.
But so it was after the fact. Was there kind of I know, speaking for me personally, if I find out that someone that I'm dating, if I find out they like wrestling, I'm like, oh my god, like I'm very very happy and excited. Did you kind of have that moment, or was it just like everything else besides the wrestling is what kind of sparked the connection with you and Dexter?
Oh no, as soon as he said that he was a wrestler, I was like, "Oh, yeah, this is awesome because I love wrestling and I keep up with it." So like half of our conversation just turned into listing different wrestlers that we've seen or that we like to watch. And it's kind of funny because I was just throwing out different wrestlers, and I threw out one, and he's like, "Wait, who's that?" And I'm like, "You don't know who this is?"
Do you remember who that wrestler was?
It's actually funny because I'm actually more into women's wrestling than I am more for the men's wrestling. So I actually threw out Taylor Wilde. And
Okay.
like, I remember watching her back on Impact when she first came out doing the Awesome Kong Challenge. And so I threw her name out. And for a minute, he forgot who she was. I'm like, "You're kidding me. You don't know who she is?" I'm like, the Awesome Kong Challenge, the briefcase full of money, the Knockouts title. He goes, oh yeah, now I remember. So ever since then, that just kind of sparked our relationship just to kind of like continue and keep growing. And then eventually I got invited to watch him wrestle at Noble because it was about like 30 minutes from me. So just kind of just overall, I think wrestling really kind of helped us to spark our relationship for sure.
did uh did wrestling events become date nights in a sense or anything like that? Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry, couldn't hear you there.
Did wrestling events or wrestling shows, maybe the ones that he wasn't wrestling on, were those any particular date nights for the both of you or anything of that nature?
Yeah, there's a lot of times like see when we met, I was living in Vincennes at the time, so I we were about 2 hours apart from each other. So I would come down on the weekends that I wasn't on call for the OR, and a lot of times if there was a pay-per-view going on, we would actually get together with a group of friends or just me and him, and we'd watch the pay-per-view together.
Awesome. What did you think the first time? Well, first of all, but we'll circle back to all this. You mentioned, throwing all the different wrestlers. Who are some of your favorite wrestlers? Who were you mentioned more into the women's wrestling. Who were some of the wrestlers you like the most, women or men?
Oh gosh, I mean, I could have a list, but I mean, some of my favorites have always been like Lita, Trish Stratus, Victoria, obviously Taylor Wilde since I threw that one. Love Gail Kim, Mickey James, and actually being able to go to the NWA Empower show in St. Louis, like that was such a big opportunity. And I was so excited,
We
and
were
I
there
mean
too. We thought we
that was
saw you. We thought we saw Dexter, but we're like, is that him?
yeah.
I don't want to bother him if that's not him.
So just getting to go to that. I mean, there's been so many of the women that I've enjoyed watching, but I also enjoy watching the men as well. Like I've always loved watching Jeff Hardy, Rey Mysterio, Randy Orton. Um, oh gosh, I mean, I enjoy wrestling as a whole. And I mean, there are some guys that I'm just like, I don't really want to watch this guy or this girl. I'm kind of over them. But altogether, it's like it didn't go the way that I wanted. Still gonna watch it because I love it.
Right. Um, so what was it like the first time getting to watch him wrestle? Like, was it kind of like oh, like I've, what's that experience like watching somebody who you're talking to and you're
Yeah.
dating and you're seeing them, either get made a fool of in front of everybody or acting different than how you know them or, doing something very dangerous. What's that like just from your perspective?
Well, for the very first time, that was going to Noble, and I went by myself, not knowing anybody else that was going to be there. So I was a little nervous going, and I kind of, I set off by myself, and I know he said he poked his head through the curtain just to look to see where I was, and he's like, I saw you back there in the back. And so, as the show went on, it was his turn to come out, and I a smile on my face. I could not stop grinning ear to ear, and that's the one thing that he tells me all the time. I remember when you watched me first wrestle, you had the biggest smile on your face, and and so for me, it was just I don't know, it was just exciting, and I loved it, and I don't know, I don't think it could have went any better because it was just pure excitement.
Right. Um, so when did you and Dexter start, regularly getting to see each other, and has that become? Have you been more of a frequent visitor to his matches since the two of you as your relationship grew from there?
Well, we started like completely seeing each other 2 years ago in July. And when we first started seeing each other, I was going to his matches like constantly. So at the time, like I said, I was living in Vincennes. So if he was in, the Noble area, that was real easy for me. At work, I'd change real quick and I'd drive up to Noble, go watch him every Tuesday. And then when I wasn't on call for work, I'd come down, every other weekend, and I'd get to watch him down here at Stride. I've got to watch him over at Cape Girardeau. I've got to watch him up at John Bach's show in Mount Vernon. So, it would kind of it switched off, and I'd go to as many as I could if I wasn't having to work. But now, 2 years later, now that we're married and, we started building our life together, I don't per se go to as many shows as I used to. Um, just because, being down here on a Tuesday and going to Noble, I mean, it's over an hour drive, and I still work in healthcare, so I have, early morning 12-hour shifts to do.
Right.
So I don't usually tend to go on a Tuesday show. Usually his Saturday shows, I'll go to those unless I personally have something that like I'm wanting to do on the outside, but I try to go to as many still as I can.
Um, so whenever you're able to go and be supportive at the show, I know you said the first time you saw him wrestle, he had the biggest smile on your face and
Mhm.
excited. Um, seeing various clips of Dexter, and going to maybe not as many matches as you've gone to, but quite a few of his matches. Um, Dexter's kind of ran the gamut of character and the different things he's been a part of. Has there ever been kind of like I said, has there ever been like the hide your eyes moment because that's hey that you're seeing him
Oh
to
yeah.
do something dangerous, or is there kind of like maybe the hide your face moment because you're like, oh my god, I can't believe he's doing this?
Oh
Has there
yeah.
ever been a moment like that? Take me through some of those moments.
Well, it's so funny because it's like you meet Dexter in real life outside of wrestling, his personality is completely different from his wrestling personality. I'm like, he knows how to put on that show and put that character and work that character so well. And it's like the first time watching him, like, I guess the best way is like to explain it is he has this very like, oh, I'm this big bad politician. I'm gonna call you out and call you all these dirty names and make you feel bad about yourself. And I'm so good and above you. And then you meet him in person, and it's like he's the sweetest person you could ever meet. He'd do anything for anybody, give the shirt off of his back to somebody who needed. And so, like the first time watching him in that persona, I was like, oh my gosh, this is kind of embarrassing. I was like, I did not expect, from our conversations and the way that we've talked to each other before to go and see him act that way. It kind of shook me. I was just kind of surprised that, like, wow, he really does know how to put on his character. Um, Usually the only times that I ever get like, oh, I gotta hide my face when he's wrestling is sometimes when they do some of those extreme moments in some of their matches, bring out of a chair, or I remember him telling me I wasn't able to make it to a show, but he was having a cage match and he was gonna be tied up in the cage with his leg hanging upside down. And I was like, oh god, I'm glad I'm not gonna be there to watch that one. Because all I think is someone's going to get hurt. And I work in healthcare, so I'm always like I'm on the ball here, like watching, like, is somebody hurt? Do I need to go help somebody? So like some of those moments get me, but now after going through this for 2 years, like I know that he's safe and he's a safe worker and he's working with guys that are safe. So if there's like a little mess up in a match and you see him, like I think he took a swanton one time and it just didn't hit just perfectly right, and he kind of like lost his breath for a moment and he's trying to catch it back. And one of the girls that was sitting upstairs with me, she's the spouse of another wrestler, she's like, oh, is he okay? I was like, yeah, he'll be fine, he just got the wind knocked out of him. So it's transitioned
so
from
so you're very
like,
much
he'll be okay.
let's say you're very much the let's rub some dirt on it, can't get back out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Earlier you mentioned that you know through the first part of your relationship you would go see him wrestle, just
Hmm.
having the night off and driving down there. What is it what is it like for a relationship to be built off of, hey, I'm gonna go see you be a performer, and then afterwards was there like any sort of, trying to spend quality time with one another, at least as much as the both of you could, or was it
Yeah.
just kind of a hey, nice to see you? Okay, I'll
In the
we'll catch you next week kind of deal.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, it was a little rough because we were so far apart. But as long as it was those weekend shows, we had plenty of time to spend together afterwards. I never really felt like it put any type of strain on the relationship, and I honestly kind of feel like because we are an openly gay relationship that like I don't have the same like trust issues or like wonders like what's he doing behind my back or something. um and I mean, we just were always able to work things out and work around it. Like if we weren't able to see each other, we were Snapchat videoing each other until we were both about to fall asleep. So
Right.
we always just worked it out and worked around it. And then finally, it just came to that point where we were just both like, man, I'm tired driving 2 hours every other weekend to see each other. And then we just decided, well, hey, let's just live together.
Awesome. Um, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up, but while I'd like to think this area has become better and a more accepting area, and like to think the wrestling business has to a point become a more accepting business.
Hmm.
Have there ever been and you don't have to like name any names to give any bad
Um,
people any publicity. Have there ever been any issues in A shows with fans, wrestlers not being accepting of the
uh,
both of you?
I mean, he's told me stories in the past just about him, and there's been people that have come to bat to back him up, but like involving just both of us, like most people now that they know that we are together and we've never had issues. All of the wrestlers have always been like so supportive. All of the guys have always been, hey, you're Dexter Roswell's other half. Like, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you guys. I couldn't be happier for you. So like we've never had issues with any of the other wrestlers.
That's good.
Um,
I'm very happy to hear that.
I think there was only one time it was that we were at a show, and I kind of like I got taken aback by it, and I'm like, do I stand up and go like hit somebody, or do I just sit down and just let it go? I mean, there was one time at a show I did, throw the F bomb at Garrett, and I'm like, really? I'm like, this is 2020. I'm like, you're still calling gay people the F bomb? I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, no.
fine.
That's just
I'm like, it's a show. This guy, he's invested in the show. He's invested in the story, and he's just angry it's not going his way. And I'm like, I think if he actually realized I was sitting behind him, I don't think he would have ever said that. But since that moment, I've actually never seen that fan back at a show.
oh well, I mean, and
I don't know if somebody said something to him and maybe, he felt bad or felt embarrassed about it, but I have never seen this fan back at a show again.
well, if that fan listens and he knows not to use language like that anymore
Yeah.
and is interested in bettering himself, please come back to a show. We would
Oh, yeah. And
Dexter, all the wrestlers would love to have you back. Just
yeah, you just got to watch what you say sometimes because you never know who's sitting behind you.
exactly. And just don't use words like that in general,
Yeah,
like
oh, yeah.
ever. Like
And like that is a big thing with like the wrestling community, like especially in this southern area, and I mean even down south, even farther. There's not really a lot of openly gay wrestlers, and like you kind of take the punches as they roll. But like my biggest thing with a lot of people is like it's just education. Like if you have a question, feel free, ask the question. Like you're not going to offend me by asking a question. Like I'm going to, let me educate you so that you can feel more comfortable. I'm not saying like you have to accept everything, but I mean as long as you're open to learn and understand, like I'll give you the biggest thumbs up because, there have been a few wrestlers that have transitioned from, male to female, and we've been reached out to other wrestlers just saying I don't understand it. I don't understand it. And my biggest thing is like, hey, I'm gonna give you the big thing for reaching out and just asking the questions. I don't understand. Do you have anything for me? And we'll give them our feedback and tell them what we think. But ultimately, it's not for everybody to understand, and you don't have to accept it wholeheartedly. It's just just open your mind and work a little harder, and you don't always have to beat people down just because they're different.
absolutely, absolutely. That's a really good perspective to have.
Oh yeah,
Because there's so many people that are just that either just don't understand and are afraid to ask questions because you know I'm not going to try and get on a soapbox, but I mean, like somebody may not understand something if they ask a question and they don't ask the right person, rather
yeah,
than being made to feel like, hey, that's okay, you have a question, you don't understand. They're made
yeah,
to feel even worse because it's like, well, how dare you not understand this? It's
yeah.
2021. It's like, I really just want to
Yeah, it's
know.
like win one, you win one, you lose one. But it's like I said, like I'm an open book. You want to ask a question, and I'll just tell you how I feel and what I think, and we just go from there. If you want to be my friend, be my friend. If you don't, that's perfectly fine too.
That's a great perspective. So as a you end up meeting Dexter, you
Hmm.
end up getting married. What did wrestling have any part in the wedding itself, or was that kind of left at the door? And this is kind of a more special occasion where maybe wrestling shouldn't be involved.
Well, it's funny too because we've had friends that have gotten engaged in the ring, or I've known some that have even got married in a ring, and it's always funny because I was like, I'm not sure if I want to involve wrestling in it, but I'm like, oh well, you know what? Let's just do a little something. So, all of the guys on Garrett's side for all their socks, every single one of them picked out a pair of socks that was their favorite wrestler.
Oh, that's cool.
Garrett did too, and like they all lined up and pulled up their pant legs and took pictures showing off their socks. And I actually had a surprise for Garrett. I went and had one of our friends make socks that say Dexter Roswell on them in bright red lettering on top of like a black sock, and that was kind of a surprise for him because I'm like, huh, you thought I was going to wear a pair of Alexa Bliss socks, but I got socks that say your name.
That's awesome. And
And
I'm also
then
happy you didn't say Sasha Banks because I always fight with
oh yeah,
I
no,
always fight with the Sasha Banks fans online. So awesome.
neither am I. But and then like after the wedding, you go and take all your pictures, and then everybody's already in the dining hall. They're waiting for you to come in. So we just decided to kind of like mess with everybody. So everybody got to pick out entrance music, and like all of my side was girls. So like I've always worked in healthcare, and most of my friends are female friends because I work in healthcare. There's not a lot of men in healthcare. And so I had all girls on my side, and he had all guys on his side. So everybody picked out a theme entrance music to come out to, and they all did different motions. And then we got to me and Garrett, and we came out as the Hardy Boys.
Oh, that's awesome. That's freaking awesome.
So I mean, like there was a couple things, and then like Ace Hawkins, he was Garrett's best man in the wedding. So as Ace and Garrett were doing their speeches together. At Ace's wedding, they did, a wrestling spot at their wedding too. And Garrett got super kicked at Ace's wedding. So at our wedding, Ace got stunnered by Garrett, at our wedding. So
That's pretty cool. And definitely, if someone I know is listening, I hope I hope she's listening to this because I think she might take some ideas if if things keep going y'all's way. But
I mean, and I had no clue that there was going to be a stunner spot in the wedding at all. That was a surprise for me. I knew the sock thing, I knew the entrances, did not know that they were going to do that.
I feel like having a stunner, at least a wrestling move spot, and a make your own Sunday bar at a wedding, like immediately knock up, like just bring up weddings up just like that much more. So
Oh
like,
yeah. I mean, everybody in there was cheering and laughing, and I mean, everybody had a great time with it, and it made it fun. It gave us our own personal little touch because wrestling is what kind of brought us together. So being able to incorporate a little bit of that into the wedding, was nice too.
um, so now you and Dexter are married.
Hmm.
You are you're living a life together. You're creating a life together. Is it now that you're not living 2 hours away? Now that
Oh, you
it's
cut out.
oh sorry,
I didn't get that last part.
I think we're having some technical difficulties. I
Yeah.
apologize for
Oh
that to
no.
everybody listening. Live to tape is awesome. But so now that you're together and you're not just going down to see him on a Tuesday and every other weekend, and you don't live 2 hours away, you're sharing a home, you're
Mhm.
creating a life together. Now when Dexter has to go on the road, and I mean, I remember at the time of this recording, you're from what I've been led to understand, you guys aren't together right now because he's away getting
Mhm.
ready to do a show.
Yeah.
With Dexter's career possibly going up, he might have to travel even further. And you've got your career, he's got his career. Is Does that bring any strain, or how hard is that for someone who maybe doesn't understand how hard it is to be without your spouse for an extended time
Well,
for them to go out and perform?
really, for me, it's not really super difficult right at this moment because, you know, for him to go on a Tuesday like he is now, I mean, he's about an hour and 45 minutes away from home, and I know he'll be back around, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, and, it doesn't really bother me happen to be separated, doing like some, doing things on our own. Though, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I only worry about is like, did you get there safe? Are you going to get home safe?
Right.
Did you have issues on your way? You didn't get injured at the show or anything? Like, you're all good. As long as I know you're okay. Like, it don't bother me, really. I mean,
Okay. You know, I always, I mean, maybe it's different just because it's independent, but you always hear on the WWE documentaries about
oh, yeah,
like, man, it
horrors.
was so hard to hear, so hard on the
And I
spouse of
think
the
maybe,
wrestler. Oh, go ahead.
I think maybe if, he was, you know, um, on some bigger platforms or, traveling even farther, I think I would be a little bit more set back and a little worried more. But, I know that, he's going to take care of himself. And if there's ever an issue, he's going to let me know that there's something wrong.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Um,
all just about trust. And I think right now, where how we have it right now, it works out perfectly well. I mean, if we were to say move on to, say he did go to a bigger platform, I mean, that'd be something we'd look at. It's all about just working together.
right. So do you ever have anybody like you say you work in the healthcare field or just your own friends or family? Have you ever had kind of the so your husband does what now?
Yes.
Have you ever had that moment? Like what does your family think of the fact
Oh,
that
yeah.
you're
I've
you're
had
married to a pro
it's
wrestler?
funny because when I first started my my new job down here, I'm like, oh yeah, at the time I'm like, oh, my boyfriend, he's a professional wrestler, and everyone's like, MMA. I'm like, oh no, I'm like independent wrestling, WWE. They're like, oh, that's interesting. I'm like, it's actually really cool. I'm like, you should come watch. Like, I always try to get people to come and watch and just, to experience and see it because, I mean, a lot of the independent shows around here do put on a lot of free shows for, different events and fundraisers and kids. So, if we can get the name out there and people can come see people, why not come see them?
That's awesome. Have how often nowadays do you get to actually get to see Dexter wrestle? Like, are you at it? I know you're probably not at every show, obviously with your own career, but how often now do you get to go see a match? And
Um,
has there ever been a time where Dexter's been like, "Hey, I know you're working, but I'd really like for you to be there for this one."
there's like, I mean, I usually probably get to watch them wrestle now at least once or twice a month because, with all the COVID restrictions, a lot of the shows have slowed down around this area and they're not as frequent. Um, so at least, once to twice a month, I get to go and watch them wrestle. Now, there's been occasions where it's been like, hey, can you make sure that you do come with me? Because, like, this is going to be the first time I'm winning this title. I really want you to be there. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be recording that. You're going to hear me yelling over everybody else in the crowd.
um, well, what are some of those matches that he's maybe made sure that like, hey, please be at this one?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. He when he won the No Limits title for Stride, he's like, "Please, I want you there. Make sure you're there." I'm like, "Oh, there." I was like, "I got more people coming just to watch you," and we were lucky too because that show actually took place in our hometown,
That's
so we didn't
cool.
even have to travel very far. And like, my little sister and her boyfriend came to watch, and we actually ended up having like a little like get together party at the end of it. When he won his first heavyweight title up at Noble, he's like, he's like, I know it's Friday, and you don't get off work until 5:30, but can you see if you can get off work earlier? Because I really want you to go with me and just be there, when I win the title. And I'm like, well, duh, I'm gonna be there. Like, I will personally request to make sure I am out of that building by 4 o'clock so that I can be on that road with you because I'm gonna watch this. Like, I'm just as excited as you are. Like, I'm so excited anytime that he gets the chance to, carry the championship because I feel like, he really is a great wrestler, a great performer, and I think he always brings a lot of positivity to the locker room, and I feel role model for a lot of, upcoming younger guys trying to get into the business and even females because I mean he's helped wrestle and train with women as well, so I think he's definitely a really good role model for people. So I always try, if it's something big and it's something special, like I'm going to try to be there as much as possible.
Last question. Um, so most of the time I've seen Dexter.
Hmm.
He's been playing the heel. He's been the bad guy.
Oh yeah.
Has there ever been a time where you're like, okay, I have to boo him even though he's my husband because we got to make sure people realize what he's doing is bad? Or
Uh,
does that all go out the window and it's like, that's my husband? Yes, go.
it's funny because I go back and forth on this because like I'm like, yeah, face all the way. I'm gonna cheer for the face, but then there are those one heels that you just get behind, and
Right.
you can't not cheer for them. You're like, I want this person to win so bad, and like with his personas, I mean, normally he is the heel. People are booing him, but I'm like, yeah, I like to be a little different. So if I play it up when they're booing him and I'm cheering him, I mean, the crowd gets more into it and it causes more chance to start going and people to get up and start yelling and screaming, and I'm like, hey, like if I cheer him on, I'm gonna get this show, like I'm hopefully I can get these fans pumped and happy, and like they're wanting to get in on this. And for the first time, here recently, he's just switched at one promotion to working as a face, and I
Gotcha.
have never seen him work as a face before. And we were a little worried about how face Dexter Roswell was going to go because he's always been a heel. And, it actually ended up going really good. So now it's even easier to cheer for him when he does his face, when he's doing face. So
That's cool. I guess I said that was the last question, but this is the real last question. I forgot to ask. What has been the most rewarding thing for you to experience being the spouse of a pro wrestler? What's been the hardest thing, and what's been the most rewarding thing?
I think the hardest thing I would definitely have to say is like sometimes, life goes on and people change. So you tend to lose friends sometimes, and some of those friends still work at the same companies, and like you don't have those same interactions with each other. So that's been a little hard just because we have our own issues outside of the ring that relationships have ended. So that's definitely been a really hard thing to kind of deal with because I never realized coming into it how sometimes it can be a little dramatized in the wrestling community and people can get upset and emotional and hurt. But so that's kind of been the
I think he cut out on me. Oh no. Hang on. We're gonna bring him back to finish that one, folks.
I think we had some
We
technical
did. We
difficulties there.
did. We did. And that was a really good explanation, so I'm very sad about that. But um so you mentioned the how things are dramatized in pro wrestling in the
Oh
wrestling
yeah.
business. That's the last thing I believe we heard, so if you can remember what you were
Oh
saying.
yeah, no. I mean, I did not realize coming into it how, how sometimes it can be a little dramatized with the wrestlers. And like kind of like there is sometimes that backstage drama. And then there's also sometimes drama that coincides, outside of the ring and personal relationships. And it kind of all gets drawn back together because, they're all in close quarters back there, like they're, you know, right next to each other. And if they're not okay with each other, then everyone in their locker room is going to know they're not okay with each other. And I mean, it's kind of sucked because we have lost personal friends on some of these occasions, but I mean, kind of is what it is. People grow, people grow apart. So I mean, as long as you kind of are able to keep yourself out of drama, I guess it is what it is. I mean, that's just kind of the hard part about it. And I think it just comes with the territory. I don't think it matters where you go or what promotion you work for. There's always going to be some type of drama.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I
Um
mean, it's a part of it. I mean, people are people. I mean, we're all human. We make mistakes.
on the positive side, what's the most rewarding thing?
The most rewarding is getting to see how happy he is in the ring, because he loves being in the ring. He's been a fan since he was a kid, and for him to actually, he never thought he'd be able to do this. And then, he started training and he started doing it and he got good. And it's just watching him perform. I know he's happy. He's in his element. And like, that's one of the most rewarding things, just to see, him really enjoying himself and just being happy and making other people happy by, either getting beat up or, beating somebody up. Now, my favorite part, I have to say, for me, the most rewarding part, though, is definitely getting to meet some people that I've been, dying to meet since I was younger.
Oh, please tell us some of those people, because that's what we're here for. Is just
Oh, yeah.
you getting people getting excited about watching wrestling, is how or wrestling or comic books or sci-fi or all that. That's why this whole channel was formed. So please tell us more.
Oh, man, I tell you what, like, I've got to meet Marty Bell.
Okay.
She is so sweet. She came to the Mount Vernon show to work one time. I got to meet her. I was so excited to meet her because I started when I first started watching her. She was in Impact, so just getting to meet her after seeing her on TV, I was like, oh, this is like a fantasy moment right here. I'm freaking out. Getting to meet Amber Nova, Mount Vernon as well. I've watched her, just kind of all over different independent scenes. And I mean, she's wrestled in AEW. She's done a few WWE matches. She's wrestled in Impact as well. I got to meet Ivelisse, which I thought was awesome because I loved watching her ring work in Lucha Underground. Like, that was so cool. And then just getting to go to the Empower event, that was like the highlight of getting to go to shows.
Especially with you mentioned you stumped Dexter with Taylor Wilde. How
Yeah,
was that getting to see the Kong retire? That was pretty cool. Like, it was
that was.
emotional, but it was like you knew you were witnessing a great moment there.
Oh yeah, it was crazy because I was like, wait, is she retiring right now? Because at first, like, you had no clue. Like,
Right.
I was stumped and I was puzzled, and then to hear her announce that she is officially retiring from professional wrestling, I was like, what? I was like, the last match I got to watch you wrestle in was AEW. I'm like, I need to see more. and like, and on the Empower event too, it's like I was so excited to get to see, the Melina Diana Purrazzo match. I have never got to watch Melina wrestle live other than watching her on TV.
That's awesome.
And to get to
That you
see
got to
her,
see her, yeah.
oh yeah, and I was front row at that event, and like I remember watching the show back. I watched a couple YouTube clips, and I was watching the Melina Diana Purrazzo match, and out of everybody in that building, I heard myself scream over everybody else. I'm like, Melina! And I'm like, that was me, guys. That was me right there in that front row screaming that. I'm like, that just felt cool too. I'm like, huh, I'm on like, I'm on this show now. That's my voice. And,
And that woman is salt to the earth if you ever get the honor of meeting Melina. She is awesome.
oh yeah, I hope that I get to. And like, you know, open, like coming into like with him doing professional wrestling, like um kind of opened up my social media pages. So like I use Twitter and Instagram actually pretty frequently. I use Twitter now more than I ever used Twitter when it came out. And we collect a lot of the figures actually. We have a bookshelf of female figures, a bookshelf of male figures, and we have a bookshelf of the AEW figures. And occasionally I'll find one that's kind of like random and I'll like take a picture of it and I'll tweet it. And I tell you what, Victoria, she retweeted my picture of one of her figures and was like, that's cool, like way to go, finding that. And Zelina Vega's retweeted some of my stuff. And I think like the biggest moment for me was I posted a picture of my ticket for the NWA Empower event, and I said, Mickey James, I'm ready. And for her to comment on it and share it, and then NWA out by name on Twitter, I was in heaven.
That's awesome.
I called Dexter and I was squealing like a little girl because I was so excited. I'm like, Mickey James just commented on my tweet. And I'm like, now NWA just retweeted me and said my name. And so like that was really cool. And then being at the event, I got to meet a group that I watch their podcasts a lot. The Ring the Bell.
Okay.
I got to meet them in the lobby while we were waiting to, go in to watch the show. And so I got to sit there and I got to have conversations with them. And I just thought that was really neat too, just to be able to meet, a podcast that I watch. And I wouldn't have even thought I would have met them out in the lobby because they were downstairs interviewing, some of the women, and they were actually the paparazzi for Melina's entrance.
Oh, okay.
So that was like, it was just neat just to, get to meet them. And, so I mean, I've met more too, just besides them, like Shalonce Royale. She is awesome and so sweet. And she's the first, like, I I don't want to say none of the guys on the independent circuit are like professionals, not that they're not professionals, but she's like one of the first professional wrestlers other than, the guys that I know on the independent circuit that has ever actually accepted me or sent me a friend request on Facebook, and that I actually have her personal Facebook.
Oh, that's cool. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
and I'm like, that's like the most awesome moment. I'm so excited. And like I got to meet the owner of the Belladonna division down in Alabama, and I the NWA event, almost half the wrestlers there were Belladonna division girls. So I'm just like, that's so awesome. Like I met you not too long ago, and now I'm getting to see half of your roster compete. I mean, your head refs here.
Awesome. What are your? I know, like it's kind of not. It's all kind of in Dexter's hands, because he's the one out there wrestling. But like, what would be your ultimate goal as a wrestling spouse? Like, what is something you'd like to see?
Well, it's funny because Dexter actually started training me in the ring,
Oh
and
wow, we got the scoop
um, he,
here.
yeah, well, sad part comes after that. So he started, kind of training me different bumps in the ring and stuff, and I took a bump and I felt something, didn't feel right, and so I actually used to be a gymnast and a cheerleader and a varsity diver, and I was doing one of my performances, and I actually fell on my head, and I have a defused vertebrae in my neck.
Ooh.
So I did my bumps and stuff, and I was like, oh, something doesn't feel right. So I went to my doctor, and they're like, hey, you're not going to be able to do this. Like, your neck is going to be too. Big. He's like, I'm telling you no, but you can do what you want. He's like, you're an adult. So we just both decided, let's forego, you teaching me how to be an in-ring performer. We're kind of in the process right now and been discussing maybe me picking up maybe a managing role or, getting trained how to be a referee.
That'd be
And
cool.
that way, I can be involved in it too. But I'm really hoping that, I could possibly go somewhere where I can be involved in some more of these women events and, somehow, get to be a part of something that's, monumental.
That'd be really awesome. And I definitely, well, first, I appreciate you doing this. It was actually at a, stride show where Dexter suggested this idea, and it's a great idea. I'm very happy he suggested it, and we got to do it. I wish you nothing but the best, and whatever wherever life takes you, be it in the medical field, and or in pro wrestling. I
Yeah,
hope you get to.
I thank you for wanting to do this with me. I was so excited to hear hey, you want to be a part of this podcast as a spouse of a professional wrestler. I'm like, heck yeah, that's awesome because people don't always get to see it from our side or our perspective. And I mean, I feel like as a spouse, like I have a really good setup here. Like I don't have a lot of the same issues that other people have, but I also kind of look at this as an opportunity for people get to listen to Dexter's podcast, and now they're going to get to listen and hear my podcast. And I'm kind of hoping it, for some people, it might kind of open them up more, with us being a openly gay couple and, maybe help people make some strides in their life.
Awesome. And if my podcast can do that for just one person, it's been I've done something right with my podcast, and I
Oh yeah.
appreciate I appreciate you taking your time to do this. Hope hope what you do in
I
wrestling
think it's
or the
awesome.
medical
I'd
field
do it
goes
again
well.
anytime you ask.
Awesome. Well, we might have to if anything comes along, I'm sure we can think of something
Oh yeah.
especially with Dexter. But thank you so much for doing this. You say you are on Twitter. Do you feel comfortable sharing your personal Twitter with the listeners?
Oh yeah, I mean my Twitter isn't anything super special right now, but you can either search me up by my name. It is Logan Turner, or it's at LD Potter 5. So I mean, if anybody wants to, follow me, see what I'm sharing, I'm usually sharing all kinds of different women's wrestling things. So feel free to start following me and just see where this wrestling life takes us.
Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely give Logan a follow. And if you enjoyed this, please give it a like, share, subscribe for more content, not just from the world of pro wrestling, but from the world of comic books, anime, gaming, all things geek culture. Follow me on my social media pages, facebook.com/athleticgeek9, Twitter, athletic_geek9, Instagram, athleticgeek9. And if you'd like to help improve this channel financially, I do have a Patreon page, patreon.com/athleticgeek9. Check out Stride. Check out his husband, Dexter
Yeah.
Roswell. Definitely check him out, and we'll see y'all next time.